No matter what hate groups want to tell you, no, there is not an epidemic of trans violence across the country. In the early hours of February 11th, 2024, a 36-year-old woman entered the Lakewood church in Houston, Texas, USA, with an AR-15 assault rifle. We won't mention her name in this article since we believe no shooter should be publicized, as this could lead to others looking for infamy as well. The Lakewood church is run by a celebrity named Joel Osteen, who has been famous for profiting off of religion and hiding hundreds of thousands of dollars in the walls of his house. According to the local police, they say the woman entered the church and started shooting. Two off-duty officers were working security at the megachurch, and they returned fire and killed the suspect. Reports later surfaced that the woman brought her 7-year-old son with her into the church for this mass shooting, and the son was also shot in the head. He is still in critical condition at the time of this piece. But the police have not identified who shot the young boy yet. A parishioner at the church, a 50-year-old man, was also wounded, but he is now okay. During the press conference held by the Houston Police Department, authorities said the suspect had a history of mental illness, specifically schizophrenia, which causes a person severe delusions and to hear voices that are not there. It is also common for them to name these voices with different names to keep their thoughts organized. For this shooter, she named those voices multiple names, some of which were female names and one that was a male name. This is where the classified hate group known as Libs of TikTok ran away with the story and labeled the shooter as transgender. This was a clear effort to make the trans community seem dangerous, but there's no evidence of such claims. The woman who committed this violent act in Houston was schizophrenic, a mental illness. She was not transgender, something that is obviously different, besides the fact that being trans is not a mental illness in any way. The hate group Libs of TikTok is on a long campaign to make LGBTQ people out to be terrorists. The leader of the hate group keeps repeating the statement online that the following mass shootings were committed by LGBTQ people. Some of them you'll immediately notice make no sense at all, but here's her direct quote. Colorado Springs shooter, non-binary. Nashville school shooter, trans. Aberdeen shooter, trans. Denver school shooter, trans. Iowa school shooter, transgender fluid. Lakewood church shooter, trans. End quote. This was followed by the statement the hate group made, quote, the modern LGBTQ plus movement is radicalizing our youth into becoming violent extremists, end quote. Aside from the fact that LGBTQ is not a movement, but rather a community, let's look at the cases to see if they were all actually LGBTQ. Colorado Springs. The shooter in this case entered a notoriously gay bar called Club Q and murdered 5 LGBTQ people. It was later found to be a hate crime committed by an extreme homophobe who found most of his information online about the LGBTQ from hate groups like Libs of TikTok and Daily Wire. Both of these outlets later celebrated the mass shooting on their platforms. Later, during the trial, his defense lawyers said their client identified as non-binary. However, it is widely speculated online that the shooter was not planning on outliving the event, since most shooters get taken down by the police during their mass shooting. It is also worth noting that the FBI just announced the previous day that they are looking at charging the man with a hate crime because it was committed against the LGBTQ community in a gay bar. Then suddenly his lawyers said he identified as a member of our community. Side note, it's much more difficult in a courtroom to charge someone with a hate crime against their own community if they're a member. So this was clearly not a member of the LGBTQ community who committed this crime. He was likely only posing as a member just to save himself some charges during the trial, and it was only a side benefit to someone who already wanted to do damage to the LGBTQ community that the community itself would be blamed for the crime. Nashville school. In March 2023, a woman killed 6 people in a Nashville, Tennessee, USA elementary school. Police were quick to tell reporters that the shooter was assigned female at birth and was identifying as a woman, meaning she was never transgender. Police did find a website that she wrote under a male pen name, but to say that she was trans because of a pen name online, one of her many pen names by the way, would be completely false. Aberdeen. In September of 2018, a woman killed 4 people outside of a Rite Aid in Aberdeen, Maryland, USA. She was confirmed to be transgender, but it was also later confirmed that the reason she committed the crime in the first place was because of her struggles with society accepting her for being trans. Denver School. In May of 2019, a 17-year-old boy murdered 1 other student and wounded 8 others. That shooter was assigned female at birth and later identified to his classmates as male. He received immense bullying for being trans and later said in court that he only planned this act of violence against his bullies because the school, and specifically those other classmates, were so transphobic. Iowa School. In January of 2024, a man entered an Iowa school and murdered 1 person. The gender identity of the shooter is still unknown in February of 2024 at the time of writing this piece. But that didn't stop hate groups from calling the shooter trans, when in fact, not even the police think that he is trans at this time. Lakewood Church. As we explained before, she was a cisgender female who wanted revenge on her husband inside the church. She was schizophrenic, but she never identified as trans, and the police have no reason to suspect that she is trans either. So there is no epidemic of trans people becoming terrorists. It's just another lie put on by the hate groups to fool the public into enacting laws that take us back to the 1800s. If you want proof of this, just look at the numbers. According to Reuters, they examined the 4,400 mass shootings committed in the United States in the past 10 years. And by the way, that alone is an alarming number of 4,400 in only 10 years. Out of those 4,400 mass shootings, only 10 of those shootings were committed by transgender people. That comes out to just 0.11% of all mass shootings since 2014. This is compared to 96% of all those mass shootings being committed by cisgender males, and the remaining 3.89% were committed by cisgender females. Those facts didn't stop the hate groups from spreading this lie of transgender people being violent. Even Donald Trump Jr. spread this hate group's post and added his own comment, quote, "Per capita, violent trans extremists have to have become the most violent group of people anywhere in the world," end quote. I'm so sorry it was hard to read that because he doesn't make sentences normally. But there are mountains of evidence to prove that statement is false. Even Fox News shared this extremist view and then later had to retract it. But as we all know, retractions never get the same sort of publicity and view count as the initial hate group's message. So now that we know that this extremist view is so wildly inaccurate, then why say it at all? Well, it gets the far-right Republicans to fear the trans community more and more. If they can make you afraid of some issue, then you want there to be a solution to that issue so you can stop fearing it. For conservatives, they want laws banning trans people from existing, and they proposed 417 bills to state legislators so far in 2024 to erase trans people entirely. In summary, no. Trans people are not violent and for the most part do not commit these acts of violence. But making people fear trans people distracts their audience from the real issues, so they can keep selling guns, which manufacturers can profit from, and those profits get funneled into campaign fundraisers for conservatives. Gee, it's almost like they want to distract you so they can fill their own pockets with money. Meanwhile, innocent children across the country are being murdered because they won't act. If you want to support what we do and get some awesome items to show off your pride this year, then head over to ProfessorPride.com. We have plenty of items from LGBTQ books, calendars, digital downloads, cloth fans, hats, jewelry, lanyards, magnets, plushies, posters, pride flags, pronoun pins, stickers, towels, and so much more over there at ProfessorPride.com. Thank you all so much for joining us. Have a good day, everyone, and bye for now.